Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, hosted by Concept 3D. On this podcast, we like to discuss topics on creating and capturing demand in higher ed. A little bit about our sponsor, Concept 3D. Concept 3D helps bring your campus to life virtually. We have served the higher education community for over a decade with our award-winning interactive maps and virtual tours. Improve your campus communications, student engagement, event calendaring, and recruitment with our powerful location-based virtual solutions. My name is Shiro, and I will be your host today. Currently the Director of Demand Gen at Concept 3D, and I'm speaking from my mountain home here in Colorado, about an hour west of Denver. Today, I am super excited to have Marty Bennett join us today. Marty is a higher education leader with over 29 years of experience in international ed. He's currently the president of SMIE, which stands for Social Media and International Education Consulting. And fun fact, he also runs, as a part of SMIE, he runs a weekly live roundup every Wednesday, right, Marty? Every Wednesday.
1 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.
And he just reached 200 episodes. So if you need a place to go to learn more about international ed, he does this weekly. So, Marty, thanks so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here, Cheryl. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And where are you joining us today? And do you want to start us off with one fun fact?
Sure. Fun fact is I have dual nationality. I'm born in England, moved to the States at age 5 with my family, and entered the U.S. as an L2. And extra points if you know what an L2 visa status means in the United States. Intercompany transfer dependent. So my dad's company moved him from the UK to the home office in St. Louis, Missouri, where I grew up. So I started my life as an international student in kindergarten. So lost the accent, kept the passport.
That's great. And where are you dialing in from today?
Yeah, from the home office in Findlay, Ohio, Northwest Ohio.
That's amazing. Great. And I know in our prior conversation, we talked a lot about international enrollment, and we talked a little bit about different visas like the L2 that I didn't really know the differentiator was. But one thing that really stuck out was you published an article on the 6 P's of strategic and international enrollment management. And I think that'd be a really good piece to talk to our audience today. Do you mind sharing a little bit about this article and your perspective?
Sure. Yeah, it actually started as a series I was doing for IDP Connect, their higher ed outreach to U.S. and Canadian institutions. And it's a kind of a formulation that I've come up with over the last 2 to 3 years, really. Kind of when the pandemic hit and I wasn't doing a lot of traveling, I started to ruminate on some of the things that I've been thinking about as priorities in what we do in international education. And I came up with these 6 Ps, and these are what I call are the principles of what I define as essential elements of a strategic international enrollment management plan. They're basically a philosophy that says you are purposefully picking people first. And what that means, so I'll go through the 6 Ps quickly, is a set that you must start with a sense of perspective, not only of where your institution sits in the world of international education compared to your U.S. colleagues, but compared to how other countries are recruiting internationally and how that impacts what you do. Also, you need to have a foundational plan. It needs to be based on data. It needs to be based on not only your own institutional strengths, but also where the students are coming from as you go out into the wide world to bring new students to your campus. It has to involve choosing the right platforms and the right partners, the 3rd and 4th P. Platforms where your audience are spending their time. That you need to be selective about that. You can't just be all things to all people. No one has the bandwidth or the money or really the time to do all that. So picking the right places to spend your resources wisely, online, in person, or also the partners that you choose to help you get the job done, because you can't be all places at the same time. You need to have partners around the world, but also on campus to help you achieve your goals of successfully enrolling a class of international students and graduating them too. And that's the piece that we always sometimes seem to forget on campus as in international admissions offices. We have a responsibility to not only bring those students in, but to make sure that they have excellent services while they're in place and that they graduate with a potential bright future ahead. And that's something that is a responsibility of everybody at the university, not just the International Admissions Office. And that's the larger piece that when it comes to when you boil down everything that these 6 Ps talk about, it's the last 2 that are most important in terms of your outreach to them. You need to have a sense of personalization. Everything all your messaging beyond just first name. That's the way when I started in the 90s, that was about as personalized as we could get with our communication with prospective students. But now it's there's country level planning that you can do. There is multiple languages that you can have your content available in to help speak to the needs of students in certain parts of the world. You got to think for yourself, what would you want to see if you were a student applying to a university? You want to hear those stories, those success stories of graduates of that institution, of current students who are there now, who overcame the odds. And then lastly, you want to let your peers, in terms of current students, those are the peers that will help drive success for your prospective students, that they are the ones living that story that future students want to know about. And ultimately in admissions, it all boils down to how well you can paint that picture for a prospective student of what it's going to be like for them to be on your college campus. And that those that do it well allow your students, current students, to tell their stories and to be that voice for your campus. And I knew that from the first moment I started in the profession 29 years ago as a domestic admissions counselor. I was told, hey, you might be a graduate of this institution. You might think you know it well, but you're a staff member. You're an employee now. And our students are at that time tele-ambassadors that were doing the calling to prospective students. Our student tour guides that were taking the new students around on campus. They're the ones that were our best recruiters because they told their current story, and that was the most relevant for those students. And that doesn't change over the years. That's the one thing that is most consistent. Your current students are your best recruiters, and if they're an important part, an essential bedrock part of your philosophy of how you're going to recruit international students and take care of them once they're on campus, then you're at least heading in that right direction. So it's not all the elements of the perfect plan. These are the pieces, the principles that you need to have that will help guide you institutionally, because every institution is going to be different in terms of how they'll build that plan, what elements will be emphasized more than others. But if you have these 6 foundational principles in your philosophy towards enrollment management, international enrollment management in particular, you're on the right track.
Gotcha. And I know you mentioned personalization and peers as the 2 last Ps and what you believe are the most important. Do you have an example of like how connecting with peers has maybe changed in the last few years, and what maybe an example of what good looks like? I'd love to learn more about that.
Sure. I think what we have gained during the pandemic is we weren't able to do in-person recruitment, and so we had to rely on digital means to reach our audiences and to continue conversations with them that might start with them viewing our website, maybe seeing a student profiled that might have been from their country or might be studying what they're looking to study. And that at least piqued an interest beyond your institution having what they want to study, and maybe they know somebody, whatever the factor is that brought them to their attention initially. If they have that initial contact with a student, and then you're reinforcing that message throughout the admission cycle, throughout the application stage, throughout the admitted student stage, throughout the pre-enrollment stage, pre-arrival stage, if you're having those elements built in where you have your current students that are doing live chats or Instagram or Facebook Lives, doing takeovers of your own institutional accounts. Those are the ones that seem to have, and often do, that have the most resonance with your prospective student audiences. And it's those opportunities for that direct contact that international students, we know for just by the realities of world travel and finances, they're not going to be, unless they're already in the United States attending a high school English language program or community college, they're not going to be visiting campus before they arrive for orientation. Right. So the responsibility is for institutions to help tell that story in other ways, and virtually is the way to do it. And through virtual open houses, through having student ambassador programs that can help digitally respond to students who are on the site and see a chat icon and have a question they can fire out. And if there's a student online, to answer that question right away, that has a real impact. If there's a virtual open house that you're hosting in the fall for prospective students and parents, if you have a panel of current students talking about their experiences live, that will have value.
And
all sorts of ways that has been leveraged a lot more in the last few years.
And I know you mentioned like a virtual event, like a panel discussion. Like how detailed do you suggest getting? Do you suggest having a native language in whoever you're recruiting in their district? Do you recommend having that in their language? Like what are some best practices there?
Sure. Well, I don't necessarily think a large virtual event for prospective students is maybe on a panel is the best place to have the kind of a native language content. But certainly there are ways that maybe if you have breakout rooms for some discussions after those kind of virtual panels, that might be something that might be appropriate. But I've seen institutions that will do live chats just as a one-off event that are country specific and that have current students from that country, maybe faculty from that country also online talking in their native language to answer questions from not only students but parents. And that's an audience that, particularly for undergraduate recruitment, is essential. You have to have some sort of strategy or at least content for them, and that often boils down to having that native language content online they can actually, if they're not perfect English speakers or English comprehenders, that they could have that available to them to understand the nuts and bolts of your institution at the very bare minimum.
Got it. And take you one step back to personalization, which is something you mentioned as well.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned different formats, like in messaging, which kind of crosses the line with what you were saying with chats and one-on-one messaging. Are there other examples of where you see institutions doing a really good job with the personalization aspect of it, and not just doing just an area cover?
Yeah, absolutely. There's an example of an institution I am still doing some consulting with right now, Millersville University in Pennsylvania. They're a smaller state school in the state of Pennsylvania, and they have not a huge population, but they have a campus of 8,000 students max. It's actually a quite beautiful campus in a small town in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, right in the heart of Amish country. But so they have a reputation of being very safe, and so that's something that comes across in their messaging. But when they're doing a virtual event in the coming weeks that we help put into their strategy this year, that is going to allow some of those current students to tell that story. To really, we added a piece to their admissions process for admitted students last year that because it was a smaller pool, they offered personalized walking tours, video walking tours, where we'd have one of their student ambassadors basically take that student on a walking tour of campus, where they might be staying in the residence halls, whatever subject they're studying, where they're going to what that building would be, where the president's office is, where the student union was, the facilities that they would have access to, that kind of thing. And that was a extreme example of personalization for every admitted student. That was something that they were going to be offering to their admitted class of internationals. So that's really as close an example as a one-on-one that you can get internationally. That really helps move that needle and help paint that picture a lot better for them about what life is like to be on your campus. The concepts of personalized virtual tours, 360 tours, all those kinds of things that Concept 3D does. Those are the kinds of things that certainly during the pandemic that became absolutely bedrock essential for institutions to have versions of it, even for domestic students that weren't able to visit campus. So those will continue to have value long after the pandemic's just a bad memory. But I think the need for more personalized attention and personalized content and is the way that will help differentiate you from every other institution that is just sending the same messages to everybody.
Got it. And I kind of have a full, super high level question, just for you. And I did some research. This has been a topic that's been top of mind for me for the last few weeks. And I found the United States has the highest number of international students by quantity. And I believe it was the UK and then Canada and then Australia. Or I might be mixing up the order slightly, but I know that those are in the top four. Obviously, with the U.S. being at a big lead up front. Just going back to the theme of this podcast, which is creating or capturing demand. Mm-hmm. If you look at all the U.S. institutions as a whole, is there, outside the country, is there just a lot of demand and it's up to the institutions to do the right job to capture it? Or is it also a mix of both where we also still need to continue to create that demand?
That's a great question. And one thing I always tell my colleagues, and I also had the pleasure, in addition to running my own consulting business, I now work 60% time for University of Nevada, Las Vegas as the Director of Global Recruitment and Partnerships. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I was initially brought in over a year and a bit ago to be a consultant with them as they were trying to internationalize for the first time. Mm-hmm. They'd had, for example, UNLV has 1,000 international students or so on campus when I started the consulting bit, and they had never really had a plan to ever go out and get them intentionally. They had a lot of policies and procedures that actually were working kind of against the easy flow of students in, just letting them come organically. There were some departments that were very active and engaged internationally, and they were doing their own thing, but there really wasn't a campus-wide plan. And that's part of what I've been helping them develop in the previous year when I was consulting. But now I felt the need. There was some staffing changes that happened, and I was asked to come on board as an employee to help guide that recruitment and partnership plan. So that's, for me, one of the first things I emphasized to them was that perspective piece that you're referencing as well, as in terms of the competition that's out there. Right. Yes, there is always going to be a demand for U.S. higher education, but the global pie of globally mobile international students has grown dramatically over the last 25 years. But the competition for that pie has also grown. Mm-hmm. Yes, UK, Australia had been our two main competitors 20 years ago. Canada was in the top 10, but wasn't really that active. It became active about 12, 15 years ago, and they've certainly risen up the ranks. They have policies, government policies, national policies that are very open and welcoming to international students and provide a very clear path for those that want to stay and work and then maybe become residents or citizens. In the U.S., we don't have that, so that's a competitive disadvantage we have with our northern neighbors. The UK and Australia have also been very active for the last 20 years as well, in terms of not only relying on agents to do a lot of recruitment for their institutions. They've been much more proactive in the last decade in terms of sending their representatives out to meet with students, to meet with parents, and do those fairs that we've been doing in the U.S. for years on a much broader scale. But what I see as a roadblock for a lot of U.S. institutions in their planning is they don't account for this perspective piece of, hey, when we're competing for international students, it's not just against our U.S. colleagues that are our domestic competition. Mm-hmm. It's against universities in other countries where we might have an applicant that is applying not only into the United States, to maybe UNLV, but we might have that same student might also be looking at a Swiss hotel school, might be looking at a business program in the UK, might also be looking in Canada at a hospitality program. That one student could be applying to 4 different countries potentially, and that's something that wasn't a real common thing 20 years ago. And today we're in a world where, before 9/11, the U.S. in the 90s had about 30% of the world pie of those globally mobile students, when there was about 2.1 million students that were studying outside their home country. The U.S. had about a third of those back in the 90s. We're down to 20% of the total number of international students studying outside their home country are coming to the United States. So our percentage of that pie has dropped, but that pie has grown from about 2.1 million to almost 5 million students that are studying outside their home country right now. So the U.S. has about 1 million students, international students currently in the United States, according to DHS, CVIS by the numbers data. So I think the institutions that do best now, other than those that have the name recognition, that are always going to get their numbers and have far more applicants than they're ever going to have space for, like the Ivies that accept less than 5% of their international applicants. So other than those, when we talk about U.S. institutions that have strong programs, that have solid programming services for students on campus, what will really make the difference is the recognition in messaging to students, future students, that, hey, the U.S. is still a great destination. We all have our problems as countries around the world. Nobody lives in the perfect country. We have more than our share, perhaps, but on our college campuses, in our communities, students should feel safe, should feel like they can thrive, should feel that they can become what they want to be, professionally and personally. And it's recognizing that it's when you're recruiting international students now, you're not just recruiting or promoting your institution, you're promoting the U.S. as well. And oftentimes, if you don't lead with that, as the U.S. is still a great destination, you can still come, and if you're in a STEM field, you can work 3 years, up to 3 years for each degree level, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral level that you receive. And that's added value. Then you put on top of that the quality that has always been the number one draw for international students to the United States. Our institutions, they're just all the rankings that are out there. If you put a lot of faith in rankings, I personally don't, but that's what a lot of the world does. Those rankings all tend to suggest that the U.S. represent the top. Like in the recent Shanghai rankings, 15 out of the top 20 are U.S. institutions, and out of all that they rank. So there's real importance in that quality standard, but there's also things that international students, if they've never been here before, don't really know about the U.S. They know that they can have, they're going to have great quality education. They know that they're going to meet students from all over the world. But what they don't necessarily realize is the environment they're studying in is going to be so dramatically different than what they might be used to in their home country or might expect to see in other countries. That's I think the biggest differentiator for U.S. educators, international educators, when you're talking to prospective students. Your you have the quality, yes, you have the diversity, but the kind of experience you have outside the classroom are those that are going to make your experience in the United States, the money that you're spending to come to the United States and study here, which frankly is more expensive than most any other country in the world. Those experiences are the value add that the U.S. offers that you're not going to get necessarily anywhere else in the world.
Got it.
Institutions can make that a part of their pitch, not just how great their own institution is, but how great the country is in embracing international students, of a country founded on immigrants. And you can throw out the stats of the one I saw most recently, of all the top 500 unicorn companies in the U.S., over half were started by immigrants or international students. And that's the kind of value that, oh my gosh, that could be me. And talk about the ultimate painting that picture. I could be that someday if that's what they have in mind. So there's still a lot of negatives and policy changes I would recommend that international educators have been calling for years, but those are longer term things that we're not going to solve ourselves. And what we can do is talk about the country as a whole and the benefits of the U.S. as a destination, not just our own institutions. And that's where I think if more institutions start doing that, they're going to see greater returns.
Maybe we'll have a listener on the show who works in policy of what is it, student visas.
Well, yeah,
maybe
it's a very complex world. I'm
sure you know it more. So if I'm hearing you correctly, to go back to my question about is it about creating or capturing demand? There's more demand than ever, compared to 30 years ago. International students, the pie has grown from 2 mil to 5+ mil. In the U.S. still holds that number one position, but we've decreased in a ratio in the last 30 years. But one advice, we're working under the current policies that we have no ability to change today. One recommendation I'm hearing is like institutions can not look at themselves just competing against other institutions, but to also work together and to sell what the experience in education in the U.S., both inside and outside the classroom, is like, so that we can bring each other up and not just, work like we are recruiting locally.
Exactly.
Got it. Awesome. Thank you, Marty. That was super insightful. Thank you so much for all your knowledge sharing and your insight. It was so great to have you on today. And for our listeners, you can hear from Marty every week on Wednesday. So follow him on LinkedIn. And Marty, do you mind sharing out where our listeners can connect with you?
Sure. On LinkedIn, it's linkedin.com/Marty Bennett. On YouTube, we have our own YouTube channel for SMIE Consulting, Facebook page, SMIE Consulting as well, and Twitter, SMIE Consulting. So you can get me on all those, and Insta as well, same handle. I haven't broached the TikTok world yet. We're not sure that generation's ready for me yet, but we'll get there eventually.
They're ready for Marty. That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And to our listeners, come join us on the next episode. Thank you.